This is another video in the series Trig by Heart. In this video, we're going to talk about 30-60-90 triangles and 45-45-90 triangles. We are going to see a way to figure out the proportions of the sides to the hypotenuse of a 30-60-90 triangle or a 45-45-90 triangle. We're just going to use 7th grade math to do this. We're going to use Pythagorean's theorem. So first, let's look at the 30-60-90 triangle. The 30-60-90 triangle is best thought of as half of an equilateral triangle. What's an equilateral triangle? Equilateral triangle is a triangle with equal angles and equal sides. So, what are the angles in an equilateral triangle? Well, remember that all the angles in a triangle added together add up to 360 degrees. So the angles in an equilateral triangle are 60, 60, 60. 60, 60, and 60. In radians, that would be pi over 3. Okay, what are we going to do to this equilateral triangle to make it into a right triangle? We're going to divide it in half. If we divide it in half, we have formed two right triangles. Okay, and now the angle at the top is a 30-degree angle because we divided the 60-degree angle into two 30-degree angles. Now we're going to concentrate on just one of the half of the triangle. So we'll look at this pink triangle here. Okay. Now, let's say that each side of this triangle is length 1. All right? If each side is length 1, then this side of the pink triangle is going to be 1/2, right? So we have the long side, the hypotenuse, equal to 1. One of the legs is equal to 1/2. The only thing we don't know is the altitude here. How do we figure that out? Okay, well, since it's a right triangle, we can use Pythagorean's theorem. So why don't we take the unknown side, which we'll call x, and then we'll add it to the square of 1/2, Pythagorean's theorem, right? And that equals the hypotenuse squared, which is going to be 1 squared. Okay, now let's simplify. X squared plus, and 1/2 squared is 1/4, equals 1. Now let's take the x squared, we'll isolate it by subtracting 1/4 from both sides. We'll get x squared equals 3/4. Let's take the square root of both sides. We'll get x equals the square root of 3 over 4, which happens to be the square root of 3 over the square root of 4, which happens to be the square root of 3 over 2. Okay, now I know that you can put square root of 3 over 2 in your calculator and get a decimal, which is 0.866. And that decimal is very useful to use in some of your classes like physics. But in math, you should keep it as square root of 3 over 2, and you should get to know that ratio really well. Okay, so if you have a 30-60-90 triangle and the hypotenuse is 1, the short leg is going to be length 1/2. The long leg is going to equal square root of 3 over 2. Okay? Alright, so now you have to be convinced that a 30-60-90 triangle has sides. If it's a hypotenuse of 1, you will have sides 1/2, square root of 3 over 2, and then finally the hypotenuse is 1. And that's something you kind of need to memorize, or you need to do this process really quickly to figure out what it is. Okay, now let's move on to the 45-45-90 triangle. In a 45-45-90 triangle, we're going to say that the hypotenuse is 1. And one thing about the 45-45-90 triangle is that since it has equal angles here, we know that it also has equal leg lengths. We'll call them both x. Let's do Pythagorean's theorem on this one too. So we'll have x squared plus x squared equals 1 squared. That can be simplified into 2x squared equals 1. Now we'll divide both sides by 2. We'll get x squared equals 1/2. Then we'll take the square root of both sides. We'll get x equals the square root of 1/2. This can be written in a couple ways. One of the ways is square root of 1 over square root of 2, right? So we could write 1 over the square root of 2. Some math people don't like writing with radicals or a square root in the bottom. And so we can change this to a fraction which does not have a square root in the bottom by, instead of saying square root of 1/2, we could take the square root of 2/4, which is also the same as 1/2, right? In this case, we'll have the square root of 2 on top, and we'll have the square root of 4 on the bottom. Since the square root of 4 is 2, we can say that it's square root of 2 over 2. Okay? 1 over square root of 2 and square root of 2 over 2, they're the same thing. They're equal to a decimal that's about 0.707. Okay? But in the case of math, most mathematicians prefer to write square root of 2 over 2 because they have something against putting square roots in the denominator. Okay? As you go through your math career, you'll probably encounter less and less resistance to put 1 over square root of 2. It's a lot faster to write that. So some people write that. So remember, a 45-45-90 triangle has 3 sides, and 2 of them are equal. There's square root of 2 over 2 and square root of 2 over 2, and then finally the hypotenuse is 1. Okay? So basically, the takeaway from this is you have to accept and know by heart that a 30-60-90 triangle has lengths 1/2 square root of 3 over 2 and 1. A 45-45-90 triangle with a hypotenuse of 1 has sides of square root of 2 divided by 2, square root of 2 divided by 2, and 1. That's it.